Hello my gorgeous friends on the internet. So the previous video we actually integrated, we set up the add upload wallpaper page and stuff like that. But so what we are going to do now is to actually integrate the authentication. Okay, so authenticate users using Firebase. Okay, so in this case now what we are going to do is to actually go over to, remember we have provider here, so I'm going to create a new file. I will call this auth provider dot dat. Okay, so this is actually going to handle the business logic of Firebase authentication. Okay, remember we already added these dependencies, and we have already added Firebase to our application as well. So we're going to go to Firebase auth. We have already added Firebase auth, Firebase core, and Google sign-in, and also we have already added Firebase to our application. Okay, but before we can actually start using Firebase services, we need to go to our main.dat first to initialize Firebase. So there's an easy way now that Firebase introduced, which you can actually use to initialize Firebase. So what we just need to do is to go over to your void main above run app, so we can just use a widget. So we need to ensure that everything is being initialized first. So we go to widget flutter binding dot ensure initialized, like so. Then we can actually have a wait. So our wait works is like a sync, so we can add that later. So let's just say firebase dot initialize app. Okay, initialize app. So this is an easy way to initialize your Flutter apps now while you're using Firebase, right? Okay, so going back now to our auth page. So I'm just going to auth page, no, actually the auth provider page. So we're just going to go over to auth provider page. Sorry. Okay, so right here, and I'm going to create a simple class. So this is where we handle all the logic for authenticating the user via Google sign-in. So I'm going to use Authentication Provider. Okay, so here now we need to create the instance of the Firebase auth. So let's say we have our Firebase auth, and I'm going to call this Firebase. I'm going to make it a private variable. So I'll be having initializing the variable here, which is Firebase auth.instance. Okay, I think that's it. Then the next thing we're going to do now is to actually create a method for signing out the user. Okay, so this one will handle sign out user. Remember we already created the button to sign out user, so it's good we sign out a user from our application. So what I'll do first, I'll use a future builder that returns a string, and I can call this sign out. Okay, and then async. Okay, so now I'm just going to call await. Remember we already have our Firebase auth, so I'll just first of all sign out from Firebase. Okay, then once we sign out from Firebase, we are now going to sign out from the Google sign in. I sign out from Google and also sign out from Firebase as well. So we'll do this one, Google sign in. Okay, think it has a scope. So with scopes, we can just set the scope to be a list of let's say email, yeah, something like this. And then we can call dot sign out, right? I hope I'm correct. Okay, dot sign out. All right, so that we handle it, and once we sign out, you can just call return sign out successful. Okay, like so. Then the next thing we are going to do now is actually to authenticate a user. To authenticate the user. So we're going to create a simple Firebase sign-in method that we handle signing in a user. So what I'll do, I'll just create a future builder, and with the user credential. Now you can see what is happening. Sign-in is a feature that returns a user credential in case you want to get the user's email, the user's ID, UID, or any other thing. Then we have the sign-in with Google, which is a sync function. First thing we do is to trigger the authentication flow that brings out the dialog to show your list of available Google accounts. Then we can obtain the auth details from the request. Once we obtain it, then we create a new credential, access token, and ID token. Then once it's signed in, we return the credential using Firebase auth services. Okay, sign in with credential. Awesome. So now what we can do now, we have already created all these stuffs. So what we can do is to go over to our auth page. So I will locate my auth page ASAP now. Then inside this on tab, instead of navigating to this very page, what we are going to do is just to call, we are going to now handle the authentication. So what I'm going to do is just to use authentication, and but before I do that, I think I need to create more like a dialogue. So I like creating a lot, okay, like a dialogue instead of, because like a message that will be shown whenever the user actually performs some action. So it's going to be a simple scaffold widget, okay. So I will call this one, I'm going to call it show alert. So you can change this to whichever, maybe you want to show like a custom snack bar that will be shown like a message. So it takes a context and also a string of message. So I'm going to close this, and then right here now, instead of doing this stuff I did here, I'm going to remove it. And very simple, I'm just going to call the authentication provider class, which is this. If we go here now, you can see we have authentication provider dot sign in with Google, okay, that we handle it. So let me, where is that page? Okay, the auth page. I'm going to go over here now and create authentication provider, okay, dot sign in with Google, okay. Once you do that, sign in with Google is going to sign in. Then we need to know when it's completed, so I've used the done because this is a future method. So I'm going to use the then. And once it's complete, what we just need to do is just to navigate to the next page, which is actually our main activity page, right? So I will call this main page, main activity, which is this page. Yeah, this is actually our main activity. Okay, so we need to navigate to that page, and yep, once we go there, I can actually return the context as well. So what if there's an error? Let's say sometimes error might occur, so we can use the dot catch error here, okay. So then, okay, then what we can do now is just to show the alert, like calling that function I created, show alert. Then we'll pass in the context, and then the message is coming from that e. Let's see if you can have e or let's say to string, to at least see the type of message we are having, okay. Alright, so this is cool. We have actually accomplished this signing with Google. You can see how simple it was. So what we need to do now is to do a hot restart, okay, to properly install things, okay. And just wait for a few seconds. It's going to take us now to the auth page, okay. So now what we need to do inside this auth page is very simple. We just have to click on this button. It's going to bring out the authentication, the dialog that will show us the list of available accounts that we have. But now if I click on this, it's not going to work. So let me see. We might get some error. Platform exception. You can see, let's see what the error is. No activity for token, blah blah blah. Okay, this is not the error. Let's see if it will print out the actual error. Okay, sorry, I didn't really print out any error, but rather I show the dialog, and you can see say platform exception, API exception, blah, because we don't have permission to actually upload or do anything inside this stuff right now. Okay, that is because we need to actually enable Firebase authentication in our Firebase console because it's not yet enabled. Okay, so to do that, so you remember before now we have already added Firebase to our application, and we have already created the app, which is the Wallpaper app. So what we are going to do now is to enable authentication for this particular app. So I'm going to go to authentication here, and currently we don't have any user, so we need to go to get started, okay, to enable the authentication. And right here I'm going to go to Google, okay, and enable it. Configure, so just set it to the email that we use for creating the account. Then you click on save, and once it's enabled, then we can start using the service to authenticate user. So let's just give it some few minutes. Alright, so currently is enabled. If we go to users now, you can see we have no users currently. So what we can do now is to go back to our application. So let me go back to the app again. Okay, this is it. Let me open my console. Sorry, let me open my emulator. So what I'm going to do now is just to do a hot restart here. Okay, so we click on continue with Google and click on your email address, and now we shouldn't see that error anymore. It will just navigate us to the home page. So if we go back now to our console, let's say we go to our console now, refresh this page, you're going to see the new user that we just created. Oh, I should have clicked on this refresh. Okay, a few seconds, and you should see the user, so you can see the email address and the user ID. All right, so now what can we do next from this section? So what we can do now, fine, we have already added this stuff. So what we can do now, because if you see now, if I do a hot restart, it actually comes back to the auth page. Yeah, if you pay close attention, you will see we are still going to the auth page because it's not properly authenticated. And when you click to sign in, it will now sign in with the previous account we used before instead of allowing us to select more. So what we can do in this case now is to go to our splash screen. So right here now, instead of navigating to auth page directly, what I'm going to do is to check. First thing first, I'm going to create a Firebase of auth. So just call this, let's call it auth. Okay, then we can say, all right, so we can say Firebase okay, then here now what we can do is just to check. So if the auth dot current user, I believe, if it's equal to null, that means the user is not yet authenticated. We're just going to navigate the user direct to the auth page. But if the user is already authenticated, what we just need to do is to navigate the user to the main activity page. Okay, like so. All right, yeah, this is cool, this is great. So if we do a hot restart now, you can see it's not going to take us back to login page anymore. It's going to take us directly to the wallpaper after we have seen the logo. All right, but one more thing, the sign out is not working. What about if users want to sign out again? So what we need to do is to go over to our main activity page. Remember this auth provider, we already created a sign out method. Okay, so what we need to do is to go to this auth main activity. So right here now, what I'm just going to do is just to create a simple simple flow, more like to sign out the user. So what I'm going to do in this case is just to call the authentication provider dot sign out dot then. So once it's complete, we need to actually navigate the user to next page only, basically. So we're going to navigate the user to the auth page directly. Okay, so yep, that would do. So let's save this. Okay, save it up. So now see what happens. If I click on this page, it's going to navigate the user to this login page. So if I do a hot restart now, it's not going to take us to main page anymore, but rather it will take us to the login page. Alright, so now if we click on continue with Google, you will see it now show us the list of our available email address again. So we can select anyone we want to sign in with, and then the user will be authenticated automatically. Alright, so we'll call it a wrap for this section.